Okay, sorry your video is so late, but due to parent-teacher conferences, I'm just getting around to this now. So lesson 10 is on something called the switch statement and also characters. So I'm going to start with characters. Characters are another primitive data type. So another primitive data type is a single character. And the variable type is char. So that means our primitive types are ints, doubles, booleans, and now this char, a single character. So in order to assign a character to a char variable, we're going to use a single quote around the character. For example, if I want to declare the character variable x and assign it the character y, this is the assignment statement I would use. Notice we use the single set of quotes to indicate that y is a character and not a string. Similarly, if I want to assign the character answer variable the character n, I would set it equal to n and then use the single quotation marks. Now, I wanted to talk to you about something called the Unicode character set. So the Unicode character set is a character encoding standard that has widespread acceptance across the world. Most American software use the Unicode character set at its core. They store letters and other characters by assigning a number for each one. So I'm going to suggest to you that you see the link on the announcement page. So let's go to the announcement page so you can see that. So I'm going to go into iLearn quickly. I'm going to go to my freshman computer science course. I'm going to go to the weekly announcements. And for this week, you will see that I have a link to the character set. So all they're basically trying to say is, if you take a quick look here, this is a subset of the Unicode character set. And you can see, like I just read, each character, such as letters and numbers, are assigned an integer value. Now, this might not make sense to you right now, but it will come into play later. But for right now, you just need to understand that every character on the keyboard is represented by a number. And in America, for most American software, we use the Unicode character set, but more later. I'm going to close this out. Okay, and that's what I said here. Move more on Unicode later. So the biggest chunk of what we're going to talk about today is the switch statement. The switch statement allows a variable to be tested for equality against a list of values. Each value is called a case, and the variable being switched on is checked for each case. So I like to say that a switch statement is kind of like a fancy if-else if. So let's take a look at a switch diagram. So essentially, it's going to look like this. We're going to have a switch expression. And then we're going to have different cases. So if in the switch expression, case 1 is the case we're looking at, we'll execute this block of code. If it's case 2 we're looking at, we'll execute code block 2. If it's case 3 we're looking at, we would execute this code block 3. This symbol means there could be a lot more cases. And at the very end, we have something called the default case. So if it's none of the cases listed, we would do this last case at the bottom. In Java, this case, having a default case, is optional. In terms of switching, we can only switch on an integer or a character. We can use the term break inside each one of these code blocks. That's an indication to Java that we're done with that case. And we often use switch when we want to select from a list of quantities, kind of like what we did in PP9B where we had a menu we were picking from. So let's take a look at an example where we're switching on an integer. So at this point, I'm going to assume that I made a scanner called KB Reader, and I've imported the two items at the top of the program to work. So I have a bunch of SOPLNs, so I'm setting up a menu to do a math operation. So I say select math operation. 1 is add, 2 is subtract, 3 is multiply, 4 is divide. So in this first example, we'll be switching on this number. Now I'm setting up these two variables, x equals 50 and y equals 234, because when we do math operations, we're going to do math operations on these two variables. ANS is going to read from the keyboard whatever we select for our math operation. So if we put 1, we'll do case 1. If we select 2, we'll do case 2, and so on. Now, here is how we begin the switch operation. We use the keyword switch, and what are we switching on? ANS. We're switching on the integer we enter from the keyboard. So then we list our different cases. Case 1 would be when we entered a 1. And whatever we put after this, up until the break, is what we do when that case is selected. So for us, we're going to print the message x plus y equals concatenated with the sum of x and y. Then we put break. And this tells Java I'm done with this case. And then I can put in my second case, case 2, colon. What am I doing in case 2? I'm printing a message, x minus y equals concatenated with the difference. And once again, I put break, semicolon, so Java knows that case is over. So I have 2 more cases to list, case 3, case 4. They're similar to the other 2, except in case 3, we're showing a print statement that will calculate the product and print it, and then break. Case 4, that will print the 2 numbers divided one by the other, and print the result, and then there will be a break. The very last thing I put in the switch statement is this default case. So if the user does not enter a 1, a 2, or 3, or a 4, maybe they put in a 5 or a 20 or something else, it's going to check for a case of whatever they enter. And if they don't find 1, 2, 3, or 4, if they find something else, then what gets executed is this default case where we print something. And if you wanted to, you could put a break after, but you really don't need to. So we can only switch on an integer and a character. So that's going to be the next part of the note, switching on a character. I recommend that if you are switching on a letter or character to either convert to uppercase or lowercase, otherwise the cases get too long. Now, when we're reading from the keyboard, we don't know how to read a character. We only know how to read a string. So what we're going to need to do is, once we get the string, we're going to need to convert it to either uppercase or lowercase, and then use a special method called char at. And we're going to get the character at position 0 because we can't switch on a string. So this is going to look very similar to what we just did. This is the same SOPLNs we used in the last example. The only difference is that instead of using 1, 2, 3, and 4, for the math operations, we're switching over to letters A, B, C, and D. Now, notice that I'm reading from the keyboard a string and I'm storing it in answer 2. But I can't switch on a string. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that string, convert it to uppercase, and then I'm going to create a character variable that I'm going to call CH. To get the character that we entered, I have to use a string method called char at. What do I want to do? I want to grab the character at position 0. So if it only entering in all single letter for the string, it's only going to have one position, 0. So we're going to call the char at, we're going to say char at 0. And this method for a string is like saying, give me the character at index position 0 of the string. We're going to store that at from position 0 in the character ch. And then I'm going to rewrite the switch statement, switching on whatever this character is. So I'm going to say switch on ch. Now study my cases. Instead of the cases saying 1, 2, 3, 4, we now have a case for character A, for character B, for character C, for character D. All of the other information for the different cases for the sum, difference, product, and division, that's all the same, as well as the default. So between the two different options, switching on the character is a little trickier because, again, we can only read strings from the keyboard. So I read the string where we're going to input the A, B, C, or D. I'm going to convert it all to uppercase. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a method for a string called character at. I'm going to grab the character at index position 0, store it in the character variable ch, and then switch on that character. All right, so in class tomorrow, we're going to demo some of this stuff, and then we'll continue on from there. Thanks.